everyone's got a story to tell, and every person in this world will be an interesting encounter. And if they weren't, you just didn't dig deep enough, like
Exactly, yeah.
and I think that's really the key that I realized traveling, is that like every encounter was enriching, and if it wasn't, it was my fault, because I really didn't get to know the person well enough.
Welcome. You're listening to the Young Changemakers podcast. In these episodes, your co-hosts Sarah, George, and Anastasia will be talking to passionate young individuals from around the world to explore how they are making lasting impact in their local communities. So cozy up, listen in, because inspiring stories are waiting to be heard, and power lies within youth.
Okay, so Simon, it's terrific to have you on the Young Changemakers podcast. I've been itching to get a hold of you for a while now, and terrific to finally get a hold of you, and welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of the podcast myself, listened to a lot of episodes, and I'm happy to be a guest today. It's fun.
So Simon, you're a filmmaker, photographer, and environmentalist. What do you think it is about nature that's drawn you in and played such a big part in your life?
I guess it's a lot of things, actually. I guess there's few people who don't, or at least I assume, who don't love nature. Like, it's a great place to be at. It gives you calm. It just lets your thoughts pass, and this is such an inspiring place as well. And I guess I have a really strong connection to nature in general, because I also grew up in the Black Forest, so on the countryside, in a small village with like a nature reserve 200 meters from my door. So it was like my playground as a child, and I used to go there almost like 3 times a week or 4 times a week as a child, and go mountain biking, running, playing in the woods. And I guess when your connection to nature is so strongly established as a child, it just becomes a part of you, and then you can't get away from it anymore. So yeah, that's
I can definitely
once you're connected.
I can definitely agree with that. I grew up on a farm here in Australia, and was a bit of a wild child, I think, growing up. And then you're immediately constrained to have to put on a school uniform and go to school and do that sort of stuff. But I guess as we get older, we still always have that desire to get back to nature and keep exploring, even when we're adults. So Simon, when did you first sort of become involved in GCM, and how did you hear about GCM and get invited to the summit?
So I guess it was pretty early. There's been a bit of a story before that. I went to the GCM summit in 2010, but I also joined an expedition to New Zealand, a youth program in 2009 with a South African explorer called Mike Horn, who organized a youth program to let young people discover the beauty of our world and become nature ambassadors. But I was 14, 15 years old at the time, and for me, the whole world was so big, and it was my first flight, and it was just insane. Yeah. And what I really realized at that age also was that, he really made sure, or the crew really made sure to tell us that if you set your mind to something, you can really achieve it. And it's a concept that's been foreign to me before doing this whole trip. And so when I came back from this expedition to New Zealand, I had a whole new mindset on the world, basically. And then I found out about the Global Changemakers program. and online, and like, while before I probably would never have applied because I thought I'm just a kid from the Black Forest, then actually I had the self-confidence to be like, yeah, actually maybe I could make it. And then I applied and got in, and I mean, it was like the most insane, especially when you're so young, you know, and then you go to London, and then there's all these people from around the world, and they're like so fun. I remember, I think it was like the least amount of sleep hours I got in a week ever. Like, I remember us hanging out until like 4 a.m. every night with GCM, because the days were like not enough, and then we just hang out in the evenings and then wake up at 6 for like the next day. And it was just like, the summit was incredible. I think it's been one of the best memories. Which summit did you join? Or
yeah, no, definitely. I was there in 2019, and that was the last summit before COVID, so we were able to do it all together as well in Switzerland. And yeah, you're spot on. It's such a memorable week for me as well. Like, I think the main reason being that you've got 60 young, energetic, positive, vibrant people all together for 1 week, and it's just like this amazing melting pot of cultures, all in the one spot for a whole week to learn and share and live and breathe each other's passions and motivations to create positive change. So Simon, going back to so you fell in love with nature at a young age, and what I'd like to just ask you now is, were you also aware of like the effects of global warming and climate change and the collapse of nature and those sort of issues at that young age?
I think like as a child, I don't know, like I was always interested in justice, and I found it incredibly unfair how the world like is set up in a way, and like how some people are born in rich countries and some are not, and some are better off and worse. And I was really more into like, yeah, projects with people in the beginning, and then later on I basically found out that it's like so connected, that like nature is the source of what we need to sustain humanity as well, and that climate change is probably or not just probably, but is certainly the biggest threat to humankind. And there can't be a just world without solving or preventing climate change as much as we still can. And yeah, I think, I mean, it's through time that I found out how when you're young, you still think it's like one category and this is a category, and you realize like the world's connected and everything is kind of related. So yeah,
I think there's something powerful about understanding that at a young age, to understand that, you know, there are imbalances in nature and in our social justice systems, but then to go on at a young age, and then this leads nicely to your in 2012 you founded Pangaea project. Would you mind now sharing a bit more about that, Simon, and what it aims to achieve?
So yeah, Pangaea was basically based off our project with this. The Pangaea project was like a 4-year circumnavigation of the world by Mike Horn to sail around the world, take youth on board, and make them become ambassadors for nature. And I was a part of that, and really inspired to pass on this message. So me and a group of other alumni from this network, we set out, and we also like the program mixed, so also some GCMs joined Pangaea later on after our summit. So it's all came together in the end. So all of us who were at Pangaea, we set up an association or a nonprofit to basically inspire youth to protect nature. And we traveled a lot to Serbia, for many years to like organize eco camps and like take school children to national parks and inspire them about their local wildlife and nature. And it's just been such a rewarding journey, because you start something. There was like 2012 we had our first project, and then like in the second year you get the alumni to help you, and you really see how like it multiplies and more people join. But then we also realized that basically it's not really sustainable for us. A lot of us were from Switzerland and from Germany, to try and set up everything in Serbia, because it's still far away. So we realized we needed to go more local, because we realized it's the only way to create something truly sustainable. And that's why we started another youth program in the Black Forest, like the Black Forest Young Explorers program in 2015. And with a similar concept, 16 people join us for 1 week to explore the national park, and we educate them about photography, about sustainability, about wildlife, and then they go out to become multipliers and ambassadors. And this program's been growing so strongly, and since everyone is like locally connected, it's not just like you need to like fly somewhere or take a long train ride to see your friends, but like they're always like 2 hours max from each other. And it's just we've created a community of over like 100 like youth ambassadors now for the Black Forest. Wow. And the community keeps growing every year, and it's like we meet up 5 times a year, and it's like such a strong community of young people who want to do something, and everyone has their own projects, and it's just really emerged over the years. And it was great to start this back in 2013, and then have this like learning curve over the years.
Incredible. So Simon, what type of kids and youth are actually getting engaged in your camps? And I mean, do they have a thirst and a real interest in nature to begin with, or are you finding that you're developing that through these immersive experiences?
So the camp that we organize is for free, so anyone from any background can apply. They don't have to pay for it, and it's for young people between 16 and 19 years. And basically it's really diverse again, because we have some people who are really tech interested, who want to like learn everything about the latest cameras and how to capture, and then other people who are like the activist kind of type, who are like, we need to like go change the world and climate change, and like those kinds of people. And then other people who are just like, I just want to hang out in nature and do sports. And since everyone is like a single individual and they all come to this one place together for like 1 week, you all start on like a common ground. Nobody knows anyone. And then you get taken out of your comfort zone. You have to like wake up every morning at 6 and like hike for 40 kilometers in the forest. And like we push these people to the limits. And that's also where they bond as people and like become friends, because they go out of their comfort zone. They push themselves, and then they grow as humans and become friends. And then it doesn't matter why you joined the camp in the first place, because you all leave with the same intention afterwards, basically.
Wow, it sounds incredible. And I think, there is something about bringing people together in whether it be the Black Forest or a remote place or somewhere where they might be a bit out of their comfort zone, that really starts to shape those closer bonds. I know at the GCM summit in 2019, we were in this place called Herzberg on this mountain in Switzerland. It was just phenomenal. Like from Australia, I'm not used to the mountains much at all. So being able to just arrive in Switzerland and meet everyone in this incredible environment was phenomenal. And it really did, I don't know, it brought us everyone together and created such strong bonds in a short amount of time. So Simon.
Yeah, it's actually just 2 hours from my place, Hertzberg.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's really close. Yeah, I was at the summit in 2016 as well to film a little bit. It's really not far from my place, actually.
Oh, you're pretty lucky to have that on your doorstep. So that the Pangaea project sounded like it was a real success, and then you said that that's gone on to projects have been developed in Brazil and also South Africa. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, we also did that. I mean, that was also in the early days. The project in South Africa was also like a strong community from the alumni network, basically. Also lives in South Africa, so we organized a few youth programs there in Port Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
We organized excursions to the beach, and yeah, but that was back in 2013. I was like also at the early stage of Pangaea, and then just in 2017 we organized a tree planting project with an NGO in Brazil, who bought like a massive piece of land to turn it back into a nature reserve. So that was also a great, yeah, like basically it needed, now the NGO is like has grown enormously over the last 3 years, but it needed the start, and that's where we collaborated with them to like kick off the project and plant some trees, and for like and work on the farm. But I mean, these projects have been great, but I honestly must say it's part of the learning curve. It's not the solution to travel so far to do something. We need to do more local stuff. I think we've all been meaning well always, but it's not the right thing to fly somewhere. I think you can start at your home, and I'm yeah, I'm becoming more and more aware of this, and I think especially you mentioned climate change earlier, it's like, and I mean this NGO is doing great now with local people, and I think we need to focus. And I mean I'm a traveler at heart. I travel like all the time, but I also realized and try for myself to become a slow traveler, which I think is just as exciting as like jet setting, you know. And then maybe like, yeah, I just take trains around Europe, and it takes a bit more time, but it also is more immersive into the local culture and stuff. So I think we just need to get used to like, yeah, traveling slowly. And I have some friends who went to South America by boat as well and stuff. So I think, yeah, that's the way to go. And yeah, so yeah, those projects have been great, but they've also been a learning curve to maybe start local better than fly somewhere far to do something.
No, that definitely rings true. I think the old saying of think global and act local definitely makes a lot of sense. Since the aftermath of COVID, now we realize that, you know, it's not always quite viable to jet off around the world, but rather a lot of these projects and action can start now in backyards. But so Simon, your fascination with the natural world has led you to become quite a well-renowned photographer and filmmaker. What would you say has been your most enjoyable sort of experience or encounter with nature through your work?
I mean, there's been lots of it. I think it's hard to say there's like this one single experience. But I think, I mean, I've really had so many nice encounters. Like I shot a documentary like for 3 years with Greenpeace about the impact of climate change on indigenous communities around the world. And we also traveled to the Amazon rainforest and stayed with the Mehinaku tribe for some weeks. And that was definitely like one of the most intense experience to live with like such a traditional and grounded and nature connected group of people who like go fishing in the morning, and they obviously they're not like completely far into the modern world. They have like motorbikes and a satellite and like some computers and stuff, but they still kind of managing the balance well, between like accepting modern life and making use of the modern technology to improve their life, but also keeping the roots in their traditional lifestyle, their source to nature, their sustainable methods to sustain the forest, to live. And they just have so many great methods in terms of harvesting and agriculture. They would like go plant somewhere and then leave the forest to grow for 50 years, and then they move somewhere else. And
Wow.
They just have such a nice and intact way of living with nature that's like, and I think the world, or our society starts to realize that there's so much experience in these communities that we really need to start learning from them, because they've been like living sustainable for years and centuries, and we just need to start learning from them. And I think the Western world is also kind of realizing that now, luckily, that we need to start learning more from them. And that was just, really great to go wake up at 6 a.m. and go fishing with them. And
that must have been a phenomenal experience. But I'm just curious, what was their sort of perception of yourself and a film crew coming in? And I guess they're aware of the impacts and the land clearing in Brazil. Or was it in Brazil?
Yeah, it was in Brazil. Yeah.
So yeah, what was their response to you guys coming in? And did you explain your sort of motives?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they do have tons of issues at hand. Like they have the problem is they are in a nature reserve and it's protected. There's no deforestation in that specific reserve because it's they're making sure. But everything else around it has been cut. So they're living in this last place, and then obviously there's agriculture north and south, and the rivers are poisoned with agricultural waste
from the runoff.
So their freshwater, their freshwater basically becomes less drinkable and stuff. So they're faced with all of these problems. And I mean, if you think about it, the Mehinaku people have been like, they've met the first kind of like, they haven't had any contact to the outside world until 1990. So that was like 30 years ago.
Wow.
And they were telling us stories about how their grandfather and some we met some people who still were alive, who like were there when they had the first encounters and stuff. And I mean, it's a crazy to think about it, right? Like that they were just living completely by themselves as a community for like most of the time.
Did you find that they were because it sounds like, I mean, I haven't been to the Amazon or met the indigenous tribes that I can imagine there could be similarities to the indigenous Australians, where they're a lot more connected to nature, and they know they're very intact with the environment they're living in. But they're also highly family orientated, and they've got strong, thousands of years of culture embedded amongst that. Did you notice more of a kind of a family and community orientated living philosophy, I guess, amongst those tribes there?
Yeah, I mean, most certainly they had like big celebrations every day, and like, or not every day, but like every week, and all of these traditional fests and stuff. And then also they actually one person in the tribe also died while we were there. So the entire village was basically on like grief for a few days. Like nobody did anything, and nobody was like, it was just like complete. So they really, I think like the entire village was basically one community.
Wow. So with that project with Greenpeace, like, did you find, were you happy with the outcome in the film there that you created? I mean, was it a success?
Yeah, totally. It was. I mean, it's always the question, what does success mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the results we captured were mostly sad. I mean, it was for sure a really crazy project. We spent more than, I think, 2 months in the Amazon with at different places, and obviously we saw a lot of destruction, like a lot of deforestation that's mostly caused by the US and us Europeans, mostly through our incredibly huge consumption of meat, which requires all the deforestation. But we also had a great time getting to know the indigenous people, the Mehinaku tribe that we lived with, and we were able to learn so much from them. You know, they live so much in touch with nature, and they really connected, and they go fishing in the morning, and there's so much like our society can learn from them, because they've always been living in harmony with nature. They've really lived a sustainable lifestyle to not take more from the forest than they give back and stuff. So they would always move their base and let other forests regrow and stuff. And it's just such a sustainable way that they're living. And our film, I hope, was able to raise some awareness and to get people's attention. It's also
It must have been difficult to go into a completely new environment for you, and then try and pick up and share the story of this particular tribe. Did they end up communicating their message or their point of view in that short film for Greenpeace?
Yeah, we did a lot of interviews, and there's one particular interview that's always really funny when you think about it from our perspective. It's like we asked one of the old men in the tribe what he wishes for the future, and then he said, "What do you mean by the future?"
Yeah.
And it was just that he doesn't really think in the terms of past, present, and future like we do, but for him it was more about the present. So you come there with your mindset, and you're like, and what do you wish for the future? Like, what are your wishes? And he's like, what do you mean by future? I'm just here. It's like, and for him it was very hard to imagine this term to think about, because they are more, I think, very living in the present, I guess, and thinking about tomorrow, but not about like in 2 years or something, or whatever's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I guess that's why the work that you're doing there is quite important to share their living and their philosophy there in the Amazon. And the decisions we make, the purchasing habits we make, are having a direct impact on those communities. I know, the commercial beef industry in Brazil is having a huge devastation with land clearing there. Simon, what would you think is your next major goal or endeavors in terms of your film and photography?
I think I mentioned this earlier in this podcast, but I just started a new nonprofit called Wild Europe, basically like 1 month ago with a few friends, and we're going to set out and really capture the most beautiful places all across Europe. We want to show people in Europe that it's beautiful here, that you can travel locally by train to some of the most beautiful nature reserves in Europe, and you don't have to like fly far to like Thailand or to the Amazon jungle to really experience like wild nature. And those protected areas in Europe, they are at threat. We have the last ancient beech forests in Romania that are currently being cut down by IKEA and other wood brands. And if we don't do anything about it, and if we don't find a way to create sustainable tourism to these regions, they'll be exploited. And we see our task in showcasing the beauty of these places, making people realize what we're losing out if we destroy it, and inspiring people to travel, to value, and to appreciate what we have here, because we still have some really pristine, beautiful, like protected wild landscapes in Europe, but they're very few. And if we don't do something about it, they'll be gone as well, and then Europe will just be like an urbanized like continent with some few left.
And I guess that's why you have a particular focus, and really trying to engage, younger generations on the importance of preserving our natural environment through photography in particular. And I think, being able to slow down and the physical action of looking through lens and, taking time to value and have solitude in the natural environment, there's a lot of, must be a lot of good that comes from that. And so Simon, moving on to my next question, what would be some sort of advice or wisdom you could share with another young, motivated change maker looking to, I don't know, start a new project or share their work that they're doing?
I mean, maybe this sounds a bit cheesy, but it's actually kind of true. Like, I've been told very early in my life from a few people that were really successful that I don't know if you know the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's pretty famous. A lot of people have read it.
I've heard of that book. Yeah.
But it has a very simple message. It says if you really, really want something, the whole universe will help you in achieving it. Will conspire in helping you to achieve it. And it's just so true. Like, I've set my mind to goals that I thought of unthinkable when I was like 15 years old, and then I just started dreaming big and started to make things happen that I wouldn't have dreamed of. And I see that with a lot of people. I think it's really about owning and like representing what you stand for and what you want to achieve. And then once you've started the journey, people will join you, and it will just eventually happen. Like, I've seen so many great success stories of people who just, and I've experienced myself, that if you just really believe in yourself and you go for it, you can really do anything.
And I think you can see that through people, the people I've had discussions with on this podcast. I can tell they're extremely committed to their cause, and they're genuine about what they're doing. And they sacrifice a lot, I guess, in their personal lives, and to keep fighting for what they believe in. And once they make that commitment, sort of all the barriers and hoops tend to get out of their way, so to speak. And they build a big community around them to fight for what they believe in. So Simon,
I think that's just the community just builds itself once you're a leader, and like people see your inspiration, they'll jump on board and they'll be like, I wanna be part of this. Yeah.
So we talked a bit about, I want to go back to the concept of like reducing our emissions and reducing flying around the world and going to the idea of slower travel. What's your thought on that? And how do you think you can improve your sustainable way of traveling?
Yeah, I think the biggest realization I've made, I mean, I've been really fortunate to travel to a ton of places, which I think is also something really valuable and something I shouldn't take for granted. But I've also realized that it's not, it's like especially as a filmmaker, you get like so many requests to fly there and then be there a few days later and then go to that location and stuff, and you just find yourself jet setting from like country to country and not even realizing, take a moment to breathe and stop and see the beauty. And I've realized that it's sometimes just way better to take a moment and to just slow down, really. And I mean, I just traveled to south of Italy for a film project last month, and maybe 2 years ago, I mean, it really required me only to be there for a week. But I said, I'm already there. Why should I not just stay for like 5 weeks?
Yeah.
And I ended up living in southern Italy for like 5 weeks, and it was just so much more rewarding if you like take your time, because once you're already there, you're already there. And like, and also I love taking the trains to travel more slowly by land and stuff, and like slowing down helps you experience it more, the distances and stuff. So I've actually become a fan of slow travel, also because it's enriched my life personally. So I think it's a win for the environment and for yourself.
Certainly. And I guess when you're in these environments and you're trying to create a certain type of film or capture that image, it really must take a lot of patience on your behalf. And what sort of, do you have any like certain techniques or way of doing things to be able to pick up, I don't know, certain whether it's through like people's body language or motives? How do you capture that through film?
I think a film is really, I mean, the camera is really just the tool to capture a story or a person. But I think it's incredibly important to connect with your protagonists in the first place. Like, I need to become friends with someone in order to be able to like portray them properly. And I think it's really about connecting with a person in the first place, and then just like capturing how they really are, and I think you can only do that when you know how they are.
And you must have to kind of be able to build up a certain level of trust and connection, like you're saying, with the person you're filming before you can represent their authentic selves through film.
And I always involve the people in the editing process as well, so they have a say on it. That makes them, that then you can be more relaxed about it, and you can go back and see if you're represented well and stuff. And it's more about working together than just doing your thing. It's like something you create together, basically.
Wow. And what's one of the most sort of memorable experiences you've had or cultures you've interacted with, other than that experience in the Amazon? There's been, yeah, you've had a fair few, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think I've there's been a lot, I would say, but I've also I think it's hard to put them next to each other and say which one was the most memorable, because there's just so many valuable moments. And I more figure that like wherever you go and whoever you meet, like everyone's got a story to tell, and every person in this world will be an interesting encounter. And if they weren't, you just didn't dig deep enough, like
exactly, yeah.
And I think that's really the key that I realized traveling, is that like every encounter was enriching. And if it wasn't, it was my fault, because I really didn't get to know the person well enough, because every person has a story.
Yeah, well, yeah. I remember I was traveling in Vanuatu once with my brothers, and there was this filmmaker there, and he was making this film like a recreation of Shakespeare, but with this tribe on this island called Tanna. It's quite a remote island, and there's this volcano there that's one of the most accessible volcanoes in the world. So you can literally go up to the edge of the volcano and look down through and see it erupt. But they were filming that there, and then the actual local tribe, when they went to present them with the recordings and the editing process, they actually couldn't believe that they were seeing themselves, because they'd never even seen themselves in a reflection or in a mirror before, because they don't have any TVs or screens there. So just hearing that, I found that quite amazing, that there's still, people out there who don't know what it's like to even and see this sort of technology. Have you had something similar in your experiences of film?
Yeah, I mean, people always love it when you show them their
And they're
own
the movie
images,
stars.
yeah, like, and it's always fun. Like, I usually, I'm also really active filmmaker, so I run around with a gimbal, or like I chase people on a run, or I try to create emotion. Like, so when you play like tag or something, like you would just run after people and capture their emotions, and then everyone's like so hyped, and then you look at the camera and like 50 people gather around you, and you're like, can I see? And everyone wants to see on this tiny small screen what it looks like. So yeah, I mean, it's always fun that's also an icebreaker or a bridge builder, is to actually show people what you capture, because you're sharing it. So I tend to do that often.
Incredible. Well, it sounds to me that you obviously have a deep, passion and enthusiasm for what you do. And part of that must be the connecting with people in different cultures. Simon, have you ever had a close encounter with wildlife, or what's been one of the more memorable experiences with animals, or when you're in nature? You said you've been to Africa. I know my own experiences is obviously sometimes you get a bit too close to the wildlife there.
I mean, I haven't had really a dangerous moment or something, but I feel like, I mean, the most memorable moments, or the nicest ones, were certainly the ones when I was by myself. When you're a group of people, it's always like an imbalance. You're like the 3 people in a safari car versus like the animal. But I think it was mostly like in the Black Forest, or also I think in South Africa, when I was just like out on runs by myself. And then I would like encounter a deer, or and then it would just be like the 2 of us looking at each other, and that's
trying to work each other out.
Yeah, like you're like, it's you and me, nobody else here, and then you're like, it's kind of a really on eye level encounter. So those are the ones I appreciate the most.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a bit different when you're on foot. You're seeing an animal in almost in its natural state, not in a zoo or in a safari park. It's a lot more raw and real, I think. So I guess that's also so important about what you're doing. You're trying to share the importance of preserving our wildlife and the abundance of nature. So Simon, that's probably all we've got for today, but I really thank you for taking the time to sit down and have a chat with me on the Young Changemakers podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Remember to help us create a greater impact by sharing this and encouraging everyone on your social media to take a listen. If you want to reach out, you can contact the host via podcast@global-changemakers.net, or feel free to message us on Instagram @globalchangemakers and Twitter @wearegcm. We'll be very happy to talk to you and answer any questions. Remember to follow us and subscribe to this podcast. See you in the next episode. Take care.